7 dangerous fruits seniors should never eat. Health risks revealed. On a quiet mid-November morning in the small town of Cedar Falls, Iowa, 72-year-old Richard sat by the window sipping a cup of black coffee, his other hand holding a bowl of fresh fruit. He was a fruit lover. Every morning, rain or shine, he had the same routine: a slice of toast, a cup of coffee, and a bowl of cut fruit, usually bananas, papaya, and orange slices. He believed that it was a healthy habit. For decades he ate like that, thinking that fruit was always good for health. Fruit? Who is afraid of fruit? He often laughed out loud when his friends teased him for eating like a rabbit. But then one morning, everything changed. Richard woke up feeling strange. His head was spinning, his heart was beating abnormally fast, his legs felt heavy, and suddenly he felt dizzy and had to hold onto the wall to walk slowly. His daughter, Sarah, saw that her father was not well, so she took him to a nearby emergency room. And it was in that emergency room, after a series of tests, that the doctor said something Richard never thought he would hear. He had severe hyperkalemia, and the main culprit was the amount of fruit he ate every day. Richard gasped. "It's fruit? I thought it was good for the heart." The doctor sighed, then said something that made Sarah pale. "For young people, maybe. But at your age, with your declining kidney function and the medications you're taking, some fruits become silent killers." Richard's story is no exception. Every year in the United States, thousands of seniors end up in the hospital with complications from eating seemingly harmless fruits. They don't realize that, after age 60, the human body undergoes significant changes. Kidneys weaken, the heart becomes more sensitive, the digestive system becomes more fragile, and medications interact with food in unexpected ways. Today, we will explore 7 types of fruit that are extremely dangerous for the elderly. Types that can cause dizziness, heart rhythm disorders, kidney failure, drug reactions, and even stroke, if not careful. Are you feeding your parents or yourself one of these fruits every day without even knowing it? Watch this video until the end, because fruit number 7 is something that many older Americans are still eating every day as a nutritious food. But in reality, it could be silently destroying their health. And before we get to that dangerous list, let us know in the comments, what state are you watching this video from? And have you or a loved one ever felt tired, dizzy, or uncomfortable after eating a seemingly healthy fruit? We'd love to hear your story, because sharing it could help thousands of others in our community. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any aging health videos you'll really need later on. There are mornings that seem so peaceful that we never expect it to be the beginning of a small incident, a hidden shock in a life that is inherently slow. That morning, the Tampa sky was a mirror blue, the clouds floating weightlessly. Harold Jennings, 74, opened the sliding glass doors, letting the ocean breeze into his small, sunlit kitchen. On the dining table was a white porcelain plate with a blue border, the same one he had kept for nearly 40 years when he was a civil engineer. On the plate were slices of star asparagus, golden, cool, arranged in a 5-petaled flower, inviting summer to stay a little longer. Harold has always believed in the healing power of nature. His wife, Linda, died of a stroke in 2017. Since then, he has been cooking for himself, taking care of himself as a way to make amends, for her and for himself. Fruit is his morning companion. And the wish-fulfilling star, a fruit he stumbled upon at the farmer's market one July afternoon, makes him think of beautiful things, something sparkling and pure. He calls it a little morning light. But something was wrong. For the past week, Harold had been forgetful, not in the way he forgot his keys or his schedule, but in the form of invisible gaps in his memory. Once he walked to the post office, then stood there for minutes, unable to remember where he was going. Once, while talking to his granddaughter on Zoom, he stopped mid-sentence, as if his mind had wandered somewhere else. At first he laughed. "I guess I need stronger coffee." But then he started to feel lightheaded, and one night, at 3 a.m., he woke up with the feeling that his heart was racing against the darkness. That morning, he fainted while washing dishes. When he woke up, the bright white lights of the emergency room appeared. His daughter Sarah held her father's hand tightly, her eyes red. It didn't take long for the doctor to make a diagnosis. He suffered from neurotoxicity, from eating too much starfruit. Caramboxin, a natural poison, was not eliminated by the kidneys fast enough. Sarah was bewildered. Harold could only utter one sentence. "Is it fruit?" It turned out that his kidneys had been failing for a long time, as quietly as winter creeps in with each early autumn breeze. But no one knew. No obvious symptoms, no warning. And starfruit, with its gentle and fragrant appearance, was the one who stabbed him in the back without warning. That night, Harold sat silently in his hospital room with an IV machine next to him. He looked out the window. It was raining. The Florida autumn rain did not pour down but seeped into his heart, drop by drop, like nature's apology to gullible hearts. Not everything nature gives is safe, he thought, especially when I am no longer a healthy 40-year-old man. The Ruyi star is not wrong, but it is not suitable for everyone, especially not for those with slow hearts, weak kidneys, and those who believe that all good things need not be considered. And there are thousands of people like Harold, still eating it every day, unaware they are putting a neurotoxin into their bloodstream because their kidneys are no longer strong enough to act as a barrier. Do you see Harold in your parents, relatives, or yourself? Choice is the last thing we have left when age begins to take away our strength and flexibility. If you still like tropical fruits, leave the past behind. Choose Asian pears, refreshing but not toxic, or dragon fruit, light but still beautiful, because the most precious thing in this life is not the taste, but the survival of a healthy tomorrow. On I-80 in western Iowa, there is a small town called Rockford. There lives Eleanor Williams, 76, who was a literature teacher for 42 years before retiring. Every morning, she maintains a very specific routine. She opens the kitchen window to let the breeze in, turns on the old radio, and places a bowl of red grapes on the oak table. For Eleanor, grapes are more than just a snack. They are a memory. When she was young, her husband Peter used to grow grapes in the garden behind the house. On summer days, he would bring in a basket full of plump grapes. She remembers him joking, "I don't need chocolate, just you and a few grapes." After Peter died of lung cancer in 2014, Eleanor didn't touch grapes for 3 years. But then one lonely autumn, when the radio played an old song, she grabbed some grapes from the supermarket, spread them out on a plate, and ate them in silence. From then on, grapes became a fragile link to her past. She eats grapes every day, without thinking. Because fruit is healthy. Who doesn't know that? Until one early winter morning. Eleanor was reading when the words on the page began to blur. Her vision blurred. She felt dizzy, her heart pounding like it was going to beat out of her chest. She tried to stand, but her legs shook, and everything was spinning like a roller coaster. When neighbors found her, Eleanor was lying unconscious on the floor next to a spilled bowl of grapes. At the hospital, the doctor said she had acute hyperglycemia, along with low blood pressure and mild dehydration. They found that her blood glucose levels were abnormally high, even though she had not eaten any cake or soda. And then, the doctor asked a simple question: "How many grapes do you eat every day?" Eleanor replied, "I didn't count, but it must have been a big bowl." What's the truth? A seemingly harmless bowl of grapes actually contains the sugar equivalent of 4 cubes of table sugar. Grapes have a high glycemic index and are especially dangerous for people at risk of prediabetes, a condition that affects nearly 50% of Americans over the age of 65. For Eleanor, what's worse is that she lives alone, and no one realizes that every morning she's bringing herself closer to a stroke or a diabetic coma. After her hospitalization, Eleanor stopped eating grapes, but she also lost some of her connection to Peter. She sat silently for hours, looking at the vineless garden, clutching a notebook filled with old memories. Her doctor recommended a change. Switch to blueberries, low in sugar, high in antioxidants, and good for the brain. Eleanor reluctantly complied, but one afternoon, when her granddaughter Lucy brought over a box of fresh blueberries from Oregon, she burst into tears. "They are not grapes, but they do not make her feel weak, and she may live long enough to tell you about Mr. Peter's love story," Lucy whispered. That was the moment Eleanor decided to live for the present, instead of silently extending the thread of memories by sacrificing her own health. Have you ever eaten something, not for the taste, but for the memory? And have you ever thought, the thing that makes you feel close to your deceased loved one is also the thing that is gradually taking you away from life? Habits, no matter how good, need to be re-examined. As we age, no one is saying you have to give it all up, but make choices, kindly to your aging body. If you love fruit, choose sugar-friendly varieties like strawberries, blueberries, or a small slice of cantaloupe rather than a bowl of slippery grapes, which are also a leading cause of choking in older adults due to a decline in the swallowing reflex. And so, from a cup of grapes, we come to a greater lesson, that old age is not a time to keep everything, but a time to select and discard the beautiful things, but no longer suitable. The story doesn't end there. Because somewhere else, in a snowy Minnesota town, a woman is drinking a glass of orange juice early in the morning, thinking it will help her avoid a winter cold. Little does she know that sour liquid is silently burning her insides day after day. December in Minnesota is often bitterly cold, but not all cold comes from the weather. Some cold comes from within, as if a wind were creeping through your chest, through your sleep. That's what Margaret Jensen, 73, has been feeling for weeks without being able to name it. Her kitchen in suburban Duluth was neatly organized. A coffee maker, a small oven, and a wooden counter that held a basket of fresh oranges. Margaret was disciplined. Every morning, she squeezed a glass of fresh orange juice before breakfast, a health ritual she'd kept since raising 3 children. She believed oranges were infallible, a perfect source of vitamin C, a cold-preventing, immune-boosting food. That was what television commercials had drilled into her mind throughout the 1980s. So when those nighttime panic attacks hit, when she'd wake up with a burning throat, racing heart, and a burning sensation in her stomach, the last thing she thought of was orange juice. Her doctor diagnosed her with chronic gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, a condition that affects more than 60% of Americans over the age of 60 without even knowing it. But what shocked Margaret was the #1 irritant to her digestive system, her morning orange juice. "No way. It's a fruit," she said in disbelief. The doctor shook his head. Oranges are rich in citric acid. At her age, the esophageal sphincter has weakened. The acid can no longer be held in the stomach, refluxing into the throat, causing a burning sensation, insomnia, and in the long term can damage the esophagus. Margaret felt betrayed, not by the orange, but by her belief that what was right would always be right. But the orange juice was just the tip of the iceberg. The more frightening thing was the relationship between oranges and drugs. Margaret was taking statins to lower her cholesterol, along with mild antidepressants after her husband, Arthur, died. Oranges and fresh orange juices, according to the Mayo Clinic, can interfere with the activity of more than 50 drugs, reducing their effectiveness or, conversely, increasing their absorption, causing toxicity. A seemingly simple glass of orange juice can cause drugs to work incorrectly, silently destroying the heart, liver, or brain. Margaret began to remember the days when she felt moody, her heart was racing after taking the medicine. She had thought it was a common side effect, but now she understood. It was a food-drug interaction that no one had warned her about. She stood in front of the basket of oranges the next morning, holding one, looking at its shiny skin in the sun. The orange, the symbol of health, was now like a secret exposed. And then she put it down, not with hatred, but with a smile of awakening. "Thank you for being a part of my youth," she whispered. "But I am no longer a 40-year-old woman with a healthy digestive system and a drug-free heart." She replaced oranges with red bell peppers, a source of vitamin C even higher than oranges, without the acid that causes reflux. She learned to eat kiwis, light, high in fiber, with few drug interactions, and she fell asleep again after years of waking up in the middle of the night. Sometimes, what keeps us awake isn't our pillow, but something we believe in unconditionally. Are you using orange as a shield? And do you know if it's penetrating your own defenses? Margaret's story doesn't end there. In Denver, a man is living out his final days at age 75. Every morning, he starts his day with a super healthy meal, avocado toast. But little does he know that smooth green avocado is slowly causing his downfall. In the Denver highlands, where snow covers roofs and the air is thinner than usual, lives an old man named Robert Sullivan, 75. His wife, Karen, died last year of pancreatic cancer. Since then, Robert has learned to cook for himself, not because he enjoys it, but because of an emptiness that no one can fill except quiet mornings in a sunlit kitchen. Robert is meticulous. He never eats in a hurry. Every morning he slices a slice of whole wheat bread, toasts it to golden brown, and tops it with half an avocado. smooth, creamy, with a dash of sea salt and coarsely ground black pepper. He calls it a conscious man's breakfast. On the internet, everyone praises avocados as a superfood, good for the heart, high in unsaturated fats, potassium, vitamin E, antioxidants. Robert has read dozens of articles like this. He even made a note on his kitchen wall, butter, longevity. Yet after just 3 months of eating avocado every morning, Robert began to change. Slowly, quietly, but clearly. First came the aching knee, which he blamed on the winter. Then came the weight gain. Not much, but enough to send him from a size 36 to a 38. He began to feel tired climbing stairs, which had been a ritual for him every morning, and then, during a routine checkup, the doctor looked at him silently for a few seconds, then said, "You've gained 12 pounds since last time, and your blood test shows your potassium is higher than the safe level. Have you eaten anything special lately?" Robert smiled, honestly. "I eat avocado every morning. They say it's the best thing I can eat." The doctor shook his head. "Only when you are 40 years old." What's the truth? An average avocado contains nearly 240 calories, equivalent to an entire meal. For older adults with slow metabolisms, excess calories will quickly accumulate as belly fat, putting pressure on joints, heart, and blood vessels. Not to mention, avocados are rich in vitamin K, a substance that interacts dangerously with blood thinners like warfarin, a drug that Robert takes every day. But what shocked Robert the most was when tests showed he was starting to show signs of mild kidney failure, as his blood potassium levels were in the red. He was shocked, not because of the avocado, but because of his unconditional belief in a superfood, not knowing that super is only true in the context of a healthy body, not for a man who is fighting old age with medicine and fragile faith. Robert stopped eating avocados. It wasn't easy. The first few mornings without it, his meals felt soulless. But then one day, his son Tom brought over a jar of almond butter and a bottle of extra virgin olive oil from Napa Valley. They made toast, no fruity avocado this time, but good oil and slices of red tomatoes dusted with sea salt. Robert took a bite and closed his eyes. "It's not as fatty as butter," he said, "but it doesn't weigh me down." And it was the first time in weeks that he walked up the stairs without feeling tired. You see, sometimes what we think is a health companion can be a silent burden. If we don't listen to our inner voice, no one is forcing you to give up avocados. But if you're on medication, if you are feeling slower, heavier after 60, take a look at your breakfast. Ask yourself honestly, am I eating because my body needs it, or because I don't want to be separated from something that has been a symbol of good health? That question is not just for Robert. It is for all of us, those who are walking on the journey of old age with spoons in hand and millions of choices every day. The story doesn't end there. Because in Arizona, the land of hot sun and scorching summers, there is an old lady who uses watermelon to cool down every afternoon. But instead of cooling down, her body is swollen, her legs are heavy as rocks, and her heart is weakening. June in Arizona is like no other. Temperatures can soar past 100 degrees, and the air is so dry that even breathing feels like grit in the back of the throat. Betty Rodriguez, 78, lives alone in a small house on the outskirts of Tucson, where everything is quiet except for the cicadas and the hum of the air conditioner on a summer afternoon. She was an art teacher, a gentle woman who loved color and believed that everything in nature was beautiful for a reason. When her husband died of a stroke and her daughter moved to Seattle, Betty learned to make peace. She colored old paintings, made mint tea, and every afternoon cut herself a plate of cold watermelon, red, juicy, sweet, to keep the heat and the nostalgia away. Watermelon, to her, was a relic of her youth. It brought back the summer of 1965 when she and her husband Ramon had their first date under the oak tree behind the school. He had brought half a watermelon, iced. "I don't have a diamond ring," he said, "but I have frozen watermelon." She had eaten watermelon every day all summer. Every time she took a bite, she saw Ramon smile from the memory. But then, things began to change. At first she felt her feet were swollen. Then her eyes blurred and her hands trembled. She thought it was because of the weather. Until one day, while cooking, she felt dizzy, sweating profusely, and her heart was pounding like a drum. At the hospital, the doctor said, "She has severe electrolyte imbalance and water retention. Her potassium and blood sugar are both high, and that is putting a lot of pressure on her heart." Betty was bewildered. She didn't eat salty food, didn't drink soft drinks, and didn't stay up late. She lived the model of a healthy senior. So what was going on? The answer is watermelon. Extremely high glycemic fruit. 2 cups of watermelon can cause blood sugar to spike as much as a can of soda. In older adults, especially those taking diuretics or with a history of heart disease, this can cause fluid retention, edema, and irregular heartbeat. And more importantly, watermelon is rich in potassium, which, while seemingly beneficial, becomes a threat to kidneys that have quietly exhausted themselves after 70 years of work. Little did Betty know that the seemingly cool dish was actually a smoldering hot wind that was drying up the remaining drops of life in her body. After that, the doctor advised her to replace it with cantaloupe. Still cool, still delicious, but with more stable blood sugar. Or better yet, sliced cucumber marinated in mint, even combined with a few frozen blueberries, both refreshing and memory boosting. Betty didn't give up easily, but this time, not because of youth or Ramon, but because of what her daughter whispered over the phone. "Mom, I don't need you to live forever. I just need you to live long enough to hold my hand when I need you." From then on, every time she cut a cucumber, Betty still smiled silently. No more sweet taste, no more bright red color. But there was something lighter, more real, like a version of memory, that knew how to forgive the present. Are you eating something, not because it's good for you today, but because it was good for you yesterday? And do you dare to leave a sweet habit, to live with the reality that is calling? In San Diego, an elderly woman started eating papaya because she believed it would help with digestion. But after a few weeks, she began having frequent nosebleeds. Her medication stopped working as well as it had before, and a medical secret was revealed. Papaya and blood thinners are not friends. In the quiet waters of Southern California, where golden afternoons stretch across balconies, a woman lives alone in a second-floor apartment overlooking Mission Bay. Helen Moore, 71, a widow, has been a midwife for nearly 30 years. She has delivered hundreds of babies, her hands once as steady as steel, her heart once the anchor for the fears of countless young mothers. But now, in retirement, things have slowed down. Helen lives in the peace she once dreamed of, reading by the window, listening to classical jazz, and every morning, she starts her day with a bowl of chopped papaya. Orange, red, sweet, and soft. Papaya is her digestive medicine that she trusts with all her heart. A friend in the health club advised her, "It's easy on the stomach, Helen. It's anti-constipation, good for the stomach, and natural." Helen believed, and from then on, every morning, she ate half a papaya. At first, everything was fine. In fact, her digestion felt smoother. But then, bruises began to appear. On her arms, her legs, sometimes even her back. One time she had a nosebleed in the middle of the night that lasted for nearly 30 minutes. One day when she walked home, her ankle was swollen as if she had sprained it, even though she had not been hit. Helen was worried. She went to see her doctor, bringing a list of her medications, including the blood thinner warfarin, a blood pressure medication, and several vitamin supplements. After a few tests, the doctor looked her straight in the eye and said, "You are inadvertently causing the warfarin to overwork, making your blood thinner than normal. Papaya is the cause." Helen couldn't believe it. A gentle, soft tropical fruit could increase the effects of blood thinners to dangerous levels? But it's true. Papaya, especially when it's not quite ripe, contains papain, a powerful protein-digesting enzyme that can interfere with medications, causing the body to lose control of blood clotting. For young people, that may be fine, but for people like Helen, over 70 papayas, on strict medication regimens, even a small imbalance can have major consequences. She sighed, not with anger, but with a sense of abandonment on the thin line between nature and medicine. She stopped eating papaya, switched to plain, unsweetened yogurt mixed with chia seeds and a few slices of kiwi, still light on the stomach, still aiding digestion, but without the risk of drug interactions. Gradually, the bruises disappeared. Her nose stopped bleeding, and what made her happiest was that she could hug her grandson without fear of pain in her bruised arm. One afternoon, Helen wrote in her notebook, "Not everything that makes us feel lighter is healthy. There are some things that need to be checked, even if they come from nature. Are you taking medication every day to stay alive? Are you sure that the fruit you eat with your medication doesn't throw off the rhythm of your delicate medical plan? Old age doesn't leave much room for error. One small slip is enough to send you into an unexpected tailspin. But the journey is not over yet, because in Texas, a vast land with dry winds, there's a man who used to eat 2 bananas a day, believing that it was a golden source of energy for old age. Until one morning he collapsed in his backyard and the doctor concluded that he was facing acute potassium poisoning. That sometimes it's not the bad that kills us, but the good, used the wrong way. We'll end as we began, with emotion, truth, and a poignant reminder for the elderly. In a small town outside Austin, Texas, lives a tall, tanned former Marine. His name is James Holloway, 74, with gray hair and a voice that still booms like thunder. He is a man of principle. He wakes up at 5 a.m., exercises for 30 minutes, and eats 2 bananas before starting his day. Bananas, for James, are a symbol of endurance. He started eating them while serving in Okinawa in 1972. The habit continued after he moved back to Texas with his wife. In his mind, bananas are a natural source of potassium, good for the heart and muscles. So did the media. So did the books. Friends reinforced it. But then, one early autumn morning, while tending the garden, James suddenly sat down, cold sweat, hands shaking, eyes blurred. He could hear his heart beating erratically like a broken drum. When the ambulance arrived, he was unconscious. In the emergency room, the doctor checked the electrocardiogram, did blood tests, then quietly typed on the monitoring board, severe hyperkalemia, abnormally high levels of potassium in the blood. His wife, Lisa, was startled. He doesn't take any strange medications. He eats very regularly, only bananas. And that was the key. James, whose kidney function had declined with age, something he didn't know about, was consuming nearly a gram of potassium a day from bananas alone, not to mention other vegetables and foods. His body was no longer able to get rid of the excess potassium as it had when he was younger, and the result, potassium buildup, heart rhythm disturbances, and life-threatening conditions. James woke up after 12 hours of special monitoring. The doctor said bluntly, "If you eat another one that day, we might not be able to save you." He was silent, not out of fear, but out of a sense of betrayal by what he had believed to be right for 40 years. After leaving the hospital, James made changes. He didn't cut out bananas completely, but he reduced them to half a banana at a time, a few times a week, after breakfast, and always paired them with protein like Greek yogurt to help regulate absorption. He switched to eating berries like strawberries and blueberries, which are refreshing, low in potassium, and good for memory. And most importantly, he started getting regular kidney function tests, something he had never thought of doing before. One afternoon, James wrote on the board in the kitchen, where it used to read, 2 bananas every morning. As you get older, what is right is no longer absolute. Everything, including your health, needs adjustment. And that is what the journey of these 7 fruits wants to tell. We do not grow old by eating fruit, but by eating without understanding our body. Starfruit is not wrong. Grapes are not guilty. Oranges are not evil. Avocados are not deceitful. Watermelons are not deceitful. Papayas do not kill. Bananas do not destroy. It is ignorance, old habits, and absolute unverified beliefs that silently take away the health of the elderly. Old age doesn't mean getting rid of everything. Old age just means being more alert to familiar sweetness. And above all, listening to your body every day. If you see yourself in any of these stories, if you have parents or grandparents who eat seemingly harmless things every day, share this video with them. And if you have ever experienced something similar, please comment your story below. Maybe your sharing will save someone from a sudden fainting spell just because of a fruit. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss videos like this every week, where we don't just stop at advice, but lead you through each life, each real story. And if you are wondering, so now that you know which fruits to avoid, what can you do to keep your feet healthy at 70, 80, or even 94? Stay tuned for the next video with the topic, 6 essential vitamins to keep your legs strong in old age, even at 94. And the video filled with valuable medical information, but told through real stories of people who have overcome age barriers, with knowledge, initiative, and patience. Subscribe today and share the channel with your loved ones so they don't miss out on a journey to live healthy, understand, and live fully, even after they're over 70.